Artificial intelligence, as the name suggests, is all about augmenting the human intelligence with tools and technologies which can help them to be more proactive, more predictive, and be ahead of the curve. Uh, like the Y2K period, like the e-commerce period, like the B2B period, like the web services era, you cannot miss out on AI right now. And AI is here to stay. AI is here to make a difference to our lives. Every day we use equipment and devices which are continuously tracking the data which we transmit or which we consume, and is allowing that data to be used by other devices or platforms to drive some intelligent insights, to provide a very personalized approach towards what I'm doing. Like, for example, if you get onto an Amazon or get onto an online site, when you log in itself, it will tell you that this is the recent buys which you've done. These are interesting stuff related to the recent buys, and so on. There are many such examples. All of that is done by natural language processing and artificial intelligence. And that's what I'm going to talk about. The entire digital transformation journey, if you move to the next slide, it's actually trying to drive a lot of changes in the way we actually live and consume. Now, earlier days, we were absolutely of the opinion, can machines think? We had to code everything, we had to write everything, we had to ensure that everything was clearly documented and written step by step, rule by rule, for machines to work, machines to think, and machines to operate. Later, we moved towards how machines themselves can become champions. Right? You saw the AIBO from Sony. You saw how people, the champions, played against machines in the chess game. Deep Blue was an invention where Gary Kasparov came big on that. So we have continuously seen how machines have evolved in figuring out how to either augment or tackle human intelligence. In a way, it can supplement or complement it rather than replace it. Right? Today, we're talking about robots which are actually running space shuttles, which are running news programs. And everything is converting itself into a self-predictable model or a self-predictable predictions of what it is doing right now. The context and the data is converting itself into something futuristic. And that's where I think AI is starting to begin to impact our lives. You cannot ignore AI, right? I mean, you may be as trivial, and if you go to the next slide, it'll be very easy. You cannot ignore AI. You have to actually try to figure out how AI is actually augmenting our lives and try to use the best out of it. Your mobile phone provides you that. Your ability to address the virtual remote workplaces help that. Your stock market tickers, your stock market guidance, which you get on your phones, help you to do that. So more and more organizations and more solutions are now using the concept of AI. People earlier days were wanting a lot of help from nature, not a lot of help from the types of things which happen around them. Today, their devices are being reached out for help. If they want to contact each other, if they want to provide insights, intelligent information, intelligent insights are becoming a reality in this today's world. Let's see how people are spending money. Let's see how people are really evolving in accepting this whole concept of AI, and more importantly, accepting this whole situation which is evolving around us, where there is tons and tons of data, and we have to use the best out of it. Otherwise, data is just getting lost. As we move to the next slide, you will see that we are really in the middle of doing something interesting, which people are not even clearly aware of, right? We are seeing that the AI industry is really going to grow into a massive $110 billion in 2024. Every industry is starting to take the benefit of the AI world. But the top industries are, of course, which gives you the personalized experience, which is retail. Banking, of course, has started doing that. Manufacturing automatically can, because Anything which actually generates tons of data and people don't know how to make sense out of the data are going to use AI. Healthcare is now starting to pick up, especially with the pandemic, especially with infections, especially with dosing. We are working on some very interesting areas where people have not even ventured earlier. And it is not just the industries, right? Even the very bureaucratic organizations like the federal government and central governments of various countries have started to adopt AI as a big means of wanting to make a difference in both their solutions as well as in the way they operate with regards to how AI can augment their decision making. It is very, very evident as we see from the markets guide, which market and markets which we have, where we have huge uplift or huge increase in the usage and adoption of AI, right? And from the survey, it is really clear that it's a real tsunami of what and how people are using AI, right? You really have people who are wanting to do proof of concepts. You're having more people wanting to figure out how AI can be adopted into their larger enterprise requirements. And a lot of them have even started implementing. Right? I know of a company which is actually working very closely with another AI startup where they're trying to figure out risk management of loans. Is it a bad loan or a good loan when I actually approve a loan? So the whole risk management, which was there in loan management, is now being done by an AI platform. So you will not be surprised if you are hit by AI. And with this remote working, with this model of where you can deliver from wherever you feel, and with analytics really driving a lot of decision making, AI is in the middle of all of it. It is much bigger than what we all think. And I think it is enough time now that all of us adopt AI and all of us figure out the power of AI and use it to our advantage. AI by no means is going to be a replacement for humans. It's actually going to augment uh, the people's lives, both from the technology platforms and from the consumer perspective. And it's going to be a real wave which is going to hit us if we are not in the middle of adopting AI. And as you will see in the subsequent slide, you are actually going to witness some clear industry specific trends, some clear ideas of how people have started to look at AI. Software spend in AI has become a big reality. US is spending a lot of money, as can be always expected, but we are also seeing a lot of the APAC countries using a lot of AI to make decisions. I mean, China, Japan have actually given a lot of case studies where AI has been adopted in driving some very crucial decision-making processes as part of their strategy. The software spend or the services companies which are in the AI space can also see a big uptick. One third of the AI spend, which we saw in the earlier slide of 50 billion, is in hardware, but the remainder is all in AI. The spending will go up to about 14.1 billion this year. And we are expecting that it's almost an equal share of the way they'll spend on the services and the assets which have been provided. So almost one third of the spend will now happen in software services space, which will provide solutions to these various industries and to the various geographies. A very significant growth area is expected in this whole area of AI. And AI has taken a huge amount of jump in terms of what it can do and how it can do with regards to how it can augment using the various techniques of machine learning, NLP, and many others which are coming up. Video machine learning, content machine learning. I mean, you name it, innovation is happening there. I mean, to the extent I found that recently in an article where there are 44 new startups only in Chennai. I belong to Chennai right now. Only in Chennai on the IT corridor, 44 new startups which have something to do with AI have started in the last 18 months. That shows the magnitude of the demand and magnitude of the need for people to adopt AI. And AI will become a central force of our organizations, of our solutions, of our services. Moving on, you will see some specific industry areas which have adopted AI. In the next slide, we will talk about what types of things can AI provide. As a leader, what does it do to enable me to adopt this? Some of the trends which we have seen in the AI space are, of course, definitely customer experience. The whole concept of B2I from a large platform or enterprise is driven through AI. A huge amount of decision making is based on intelligent insights and the ability to take decisions with both structured and unstructured data coming our way. A lot of products and services are now embracing AI in a very big way. Obviously, because of its nature, because of its ability to improve efficiencies, your cost of operations is going to come down. And more importantly, while the cost of operation comes down, it is not a linear proportion of efficiency improvement. It is actually going to be an exponential proportion of your efficiency improvement. It will pay off. And what they anticipate is the banking industry alone can add significant value to its customers if they adopt AI. AI is continuing to evolve even now. It's not yet at its peak. The analysts are predicting 3-4 more years before it can actually come to its peak. But AI is making a huge inroad, and there could be more benefits than what we have listed. These are some things which we have listed from public domain based on specific surveys which have been conducted with organizations which have adopted AI. Moving on, we are trying to narrow it down to specific industries in the subsequent slides. Going forward, we are seeing within the areas of risk and compliance in the financial sector and the government sector. We think, as I said, managing risk, fraud, and cybersecurity threats is a definitive area where we are seeing AI. Ethics and subconscious biases and explainability of some selection and detections are happening through AI. The better decision making across the organization is happening through AI. A lot of simulation techniques are being used using and leveraging AI. And of course, because it learns from past history and the current context, automation of routine tasks is becoming a significant driver to leverage and use AI. Leaders are very confident that AI can solve some of these problems, including COVID-19 problems, because a lot of the infection issues, a lot of the population health, demographic management, a lot of the emergency room admissions, a lot of the ward room admissions, a lot of elective surgery detections and elective surgery necessities are actually being used and adopted and solved using AI. AI is really taking over the world, and it is for the benefit rather than as a fatigue or a worry. And you will see that we are continuing to drive certain areas of AI which can actually help customers in solving certain industry problems. We go to the next slide. You will find that AI is not necessarily used only for decision making in few areas. AI is big time catching up with this pandemic in healthcare. How do I get a better patient care? How do I get better harmonization of test procedures and testing? How do I figure out dosing information and find out the efficacy of the drugs? Doctor to patient ratio, how do I reduce it by making right choices of which patient to go should go to which doctor? And there are a lot more, and we ourselves are spending tremendous amount of time in terms of how decision making can be done to, one, enhance the patient care, reduce the cost of operations, and more importantly, give a better experience for both the caregiver and the caretaker. Every aspect of a hospital is now trying to automate itself, and every aspect of it deals with tons and tons of data. It could mean quality, it could mean cost, it could mean accessibility, or it could be the other way around. It could mean how and what parameters keep changing, and hence how can it affect the cost, accessibility, and quality of care. Both static and dynamic behaviors, because it can do machine learning, because it can do pattern-based recognitions, it's able to really drive these key parameters in a healthcare situation. And a lot of people have figured out how to leverage it, starting with rule-based AI, then into NLP, and then onto significant AI techniques to drive patient care and the cost of running the hospital itself. And we are in the middle of it, and that's where we're able to relate to some of these. Go on to the next one. As an example of another industry, the next slide will talk about in healthcare, while patient care is becoming very, very important, you will see in the BFSI area, the loan management and customer lifecycle management and customer acquisition is an important aspect. How can we really give a personalized experience? How can we do a B2I, as they call it, in terms of loan management, in terms of credit decision making, in terms of risk management, and how machines are able to make those decisions based on the ML algorithms and creating those models which can actually learn by themselves. And some of the techniques which are being used, be it either supervised learning or unsupervised learning, or the recent ones of dark learning, reinforcement learning, explainable AI. All of these are actually helping customers to make very, very informed decisions. We are actually developing a platform for one of the largest credit banks in the US, which is actually using AI and ML to drive loan management and credit risk management. Amazing that tons and tons of data have been lying with the banks and people are not using it to take effective decisions. We are able to now deploy the platform to drive some of these decisions. And we are keen that we are able to help the bank reduce bad loans, enhance customer experience. As you can see, there is commonality in the way AI is being used, enrich user experience, and provide that customized, personalized feel in whatever industry. But it's extremely important the context of the problem and the context of industry is understood while adopting some of these AI models. Moving on, and I'll wrap it up very quickly now. There is a huge amount of consideration, learning, and material available. What does success for an embracement of an AI mean? What do you do, and how do you address it in your enterprise? First and foremost, there should be an adoption of a culture to allow AI to be mainstream. There is a fear AI will come in and take away human jobs. There is a fear. For example, if I draw an anomaly of a AI problem, which people are worried about, like if you're having a car and AI is leading a car, driving the car, at a point in the traffic light, you have to take a right turn. And the traffic light is actually said go. Now, if there is a pedestrian who's crossing the street, because the machine says go, it'll keep going and it may actually go and hang on the pedestrian. That's a fear. Because the rule says if the traffic light is clear and there is no one in the vicinity, please take a right turn. Now, if there is a big truck which is coming in the opposite direction, which has broken the rule, so if you move left, you'll hit the truck and you will get crashed. If you move right, the pedestrian could be hit because he was also jumping across and running after to cross the road. Now, which one will the AI machine take a decision? 90% of the times, people think that the AI will take a decision of moving right rather than getting crushed and then maybe kill the pedestrian. It's not true. It is not to take away the driver. It is to allow the car to make an informed decision at that point in time, saying that stay, don't move. On the left is a truck, on the right is a pedestrian. Just stay, let it be honked, and you can move a little later once both of those situations have happened. It is to augment you rather than drive you crazy to do one over the other. The culture is extremely important. We should have an open culture to say AI is there to benefit us. Clearly address the integration between data and talent. It's very important. People have statistical mindsets, but have not had enough data. And people who have had enough data did not have statistical mindsets. It's important that we allow both to come together. Analytics and automation is an extremely important aspect arriving out of AI. And I think we should be clearly ready for that. We have to pick the right operating model. Not everything in AI, like not everything in services or not everything in outsourcing is always workable. We have to figure out what's the right operating model and we have to figure out how to adopt it. And that needs experience and governance. And more importantly, AI cannot come in the way of you running an ethical organization. It cannot compromise on ethics. AI has to align with the governing principles of our existence, which means that we have to have a significant governance mechanism in place to ensure the whole explainable AI, as they call it, is able to help you make informed decisions well. These are certain things which we have seen all along while we're adopting AI. And I'm happy that I'm able to share this with you and share this to a broader audience. We move on. I think we're done with it. I would like to completely reinforce the point that AI is here to stay. AI is going to make tremendous progress than what we all thought before. It is as profound as some of the innovations which we have had in the past. It is actually going to revolutionize the way we are going to operate. We're going to adapt and we're going to grow. Better late than never. Think of AI as a very significant addition to your toolkit. It will help you become better, provide greater customer experience, provide lower cost of service, and more importantly, address industry-leading problems. I think adoption of this can be very selective, but should be accelerated to provide benefits so that you're not left behind the race. I would stop my conversation here and thank you for this opportunity, NetNext and team. It was interesting to share some of my experience. Be happy if there are any questions to be taken, or thank you and have a great evening.